The problem is, of course, in times of chronic stress, the natural thing for the brain to do is to attend to the threats and to become anxious, right? Because again, that anxiety response is a natural response to try to help you deal with threats. And our minds are not sophisticated enough to go, oh, that's a chronic stress, forget it. They don't forget it. They keep orienting to it. So in times of something like COVID or whatever the chronic stress is, if you allow your mind to just do its thing, it will be drawn to that threatening thing. If it's a boss that wants to fire you, if it's a personal relationship that's not going well, your mind will keep going back to that because that's a threat of your current way of being. And if it does go back to that, it's going to make you anxious, right? And so one of the main points that I want to make in this course is that you don't have to allow that to happen. If you just sit back, that will happen. But you can take the wheel. You can actually, to get away from anxiety, and we're never going to completely get away from it. It's really kind of getting a break from it is what we're talking about. But if we want to get those breaks, it's up to us to kind of pull the mind somewhere else, right? And just not let it go wherever it wants. So that's why I'm calling this taking the wheel. The idea of you saying, no, 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 I want to control what's on my mind. And if we can put pleasant things in our mind, positive things in our mind, that will put our body into a more relaxed state and we will feel better. Right. So generally speaking then, here's what I want to suggest. A skill that you can learn. Now, every time I say the word skills, it's a double-edged sword. I want to remind you of that. Once you develop a skill, it's very powerful. Think of someone who's a great dancer or a great musician or whatnot. They've spent time developing that skill, and now they have that skill for the rest of their life. So the investment is paid off, so to speak. But there's an investment, and often we're not good at paying that investment. We don't develop the skill well because often it's difficult early on. So let me tell you about this skill, the skill of being at the wheel of your mind. And it's a very straightforward, it seems like a simple story. So let's just, go through the 1, 2, 3 here. What you want to, the first step, the first critical step, and the hardest step is to become a little more reflective, to become better at checking in with your mind. So becoming mindful of your mind, really paying attention. What are the thoughts I'm having? What are the sorts of feelings? And when I say mind, I also mean body here, right? Because with anxiety, we know that there's a bodily feeling, right? There's that tingly kind of feeling, that uncomfortable energy, which you now know is oxygen-rich blood in your body. You can feel that tension. So learning to kind of feel that, wow, I'm anxious. We're not very good sometimes at sensing our own anxiety, even though it does feel like that. In fact, sometimes we also have to be mindful of our behaviors, and specifically the fight or flee reflex. So, for example, somebody might say, I think you're a little anxious. And, the common response is, no, I'm not. I'm not anxious, which is the fight reply, right? And so if you see yourself doing that fight, saying, no, you're wrong. Those are the words that kind of suggest a fight reflex. And then maybe you want to check in and go, oh, wait a minute, am I anxious? Maybe I am. And similarly, flee. You might find yourself just wanting to get the heck away from things. And, if you're seeing those behaviors or feeling that body or checking in your mind, any of those things can let you know, hey, I'm anxious. And so if you can get good at detecting that in yourself, and you can now tie that to experiences that you've had, right? So this is where I want to go. You just were in some situation. Something just happened in your world. If you could now check in on your mind and say, how did that make me feel? And maybe that thing's happening now, by the way. Maybe you're having an experience. How do I feel? That thing may be making you anxious. It may be actually making you feel good. Or even not anxious, which is a form of good, right? It's not necessarily good, doesn't necessarily release the endorphins, But even if you're not anxious, then the cortisol is not flowing. And so you have an escape from the anxiety. So that's the first step, is starting to kind of make an inventory. Hey, when I do that, it makes me anxious. When I do that, it makes me feel good. And we're going to continually reinforce throughout this course various things that will probably make you feel good. And so you want to kind of keep track of these things, and test for yourself, because we're all different, right? For some of us, a comedy makes us feel really good. For some of us, we watch a comedy and we go, that's stupid. And we end up feeling like annoyed or frustrated or something like that. So it's got to be you, right? Find out what works for you. But if you can start getting this list of things that make you anxious and things that make you feel good, then 2 and 3 emerge naturally.